Hello, 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 everyone. Happy. What is Wednesday? Potential tariff ruling day. We'll see if that happens. Don't forget about that one today. Good morning, Royal Palms. Good morning, Jacob. Good morning, Patrick. Hope you were okay. Missed you yesterday. Zello, good morning. Good morning, Yogi. Good morning, Teddy. I love to say Teddy Ballgame. I love that. That just brightens my day. Coming up to spring season starting in a bit, but we got to get through the Super Bowl first. But good morning. Good morning over to Patrick and Rusty over on Rumble and people in the background. Good morning to people still filtering in. Where are you this morning? All right. We'll keep saying hi to people as they filter in, but with the PPIs from October, November, which were mixed, overall core PPI after November is sitting flat year over year. Core PPI after November is at 3%. Uh, the PPI, where is it? Year over year, the non-core is at 3% after November, so we'll just go with that one. So we're starting at a baseline of 3%. We don't have December's numbers yet, so we still have to wait for that. But this is very backwards looking at this point. Retail sales for November coming in at 0.6 versus 0.4. Remember, that was holiday season and retail sales are not inflation adjusted. Good. Hello, Charles. So I'm so used to saying good morning, but Charles overseas saying hello. So what else do we have? Year over year retail sales coming in at 3.3. This morning we got Paulson speaking. We got some existing home sales. We got Mirren speaking. We got the crude numbers. Crude numbers with crude continues to rally. Then we got Bostic, Kashkari. We got the Beige Book. And we got Williams speaking. Good morning, Balaji. Good morning, OD Green. All right. Doing fine. Had early obligations in Bloomington. Well, that's understandable. Understandable, Patrick. Well, what else do we have? But big thing if we get the potential tariff ruling today, so we got to pay attention to the news feed. By the way, remind me to touch base on Intel. It's hit the 87.5 harmonic. Earnings are coming up, and it's insanely overbought. I'd be real careful if you're long Intel. We had Bank of America, Wells Fargo down in earnings, Citibank up slightly on earnings. So that was that. Other than the Mag 7, chips are down except for Intel. We have Netflix, a little bright spot there. If we look at the groups and sectors, we again, metals are silver's on a tear again. Basic materials and energy leading, and everything else flat to negative. Everything else flat to negative. Fed watch, pretty much locked in 97.2 for the meeting in 14 days, 2 weeks from now. Pretty much locked in for a pause. Fear and greed. In greed mode still. Schiller PE. Did I refresh this? Yes, 40.92. Little pullback with the market dropped yesterday. So we Wells Fargo, which was a miss. Bank of America. Now I don't remember. Well, some these were mixed to not as good as expected. That's why stuff's down. After the close, not much. Tomorrow we have TSMC, Morgan Stanley, Goldman Sachs, BlackRock. So pretty big cross section tomorrow in the morning. Who else is here? Good morning, Eric. Been in the trenches of the London overnight session. That's understandable. Can we check out AMD today? We can look at AMD. All right. So coming back, we dropped just below the key level, bounced a little, and then turned into resistance. Same levels as yesterday I'm using. Virtually the same levels. This might get a little higher. I'm coming in closer to 69.57, 69.60. But in order, we'll be looking, hey, if we get, it's all going to depend. You know what? If we get a percent beat buys in the 4-hour bars, we'll pay attention to those key highs, which we might be setting up for. We are oversold in the 4-hour basis. If we sell off 69.57 and then 69.40. If something massive happens and the market sells off, 6,900 is your major support. There's actually a pretty significant area there. By the way, 69.40 takes us to the bottom of the rotation zone. Good morning, my new RSV friend that won't go away. Sorry about that, holy. A restaurant at Mall of America canceled our lunch reservation and closed for the day due to fear of ICE activities. Oh boy. Well, there you go. Is ICE patrolling the Mall of America? Oh boy. No comments. So that's where we sit there. Either a 4 hour percent B buy or above 7,000 is the only thing that takes me back to short-term bullish mode, or I get a double bottom pattern. Being cautious again today with the tariff ruling, and we're overbought on the daily. Cycles at the top. We're finally getting a pullback. So that's what, as I said today, unless we start getting momentum, it's a tough short for me. If you're super scalpy, you could be short, but I'm more looking still now. If we get momentum with a tariff ruling, that could be hopped on. NASDAQ. NASDAQ was easier for a short. Why? We triggered the double top, little bounce, and then a rollover. First and second targets hit. Would be trailing at this point with stuff taken off, watching if this is a percent beat buy. Final stop would be above this 4 hour bars high. If we sell off, the key area still is this 625, 675 area, 671. There's a lot of support here. We break through that. I'm looking closer to 25.6. And if we, wrong button. If we have the bigger sell off, then I'm looking closer to, excuse me, 25.465 to 25.5 if we have the bigger sell off. We broke the rotation zone. But first thing I'd be focused on is 25.6. Same thing. Either I need a bullish setup, I need a percent B buy, a cautious percent B buy. Really, I need to get above 25.830. I'm raising this level a bit, about 25.840 to get back into bullish mode. Good morning, David. Good morning, Heinrich. No staff is foreign. Hey, what's dark? Hold on. My broker lowered my leverage because I'm too dangerous. That's because I was taking money from the last 2 weeks and they didn't like it. But when I'm losing, they don't care. Well, I again, I cannot comment. I don't know your broker. It's not. Were you managing stuff or were you over levered though? See, that's what I want to know. I want to know if you were over levered making money. Because again, if you're doing the wrong things to make money, you're going to blow up at some point. Now, I can't comment. Don't know your broker. Don't know the situation. Have not reviewed your trades. So I cannot make a comment on that. But if you don't trust your broker, I go to a different broker. Dow, same thing. We'll be looking if we do get a. We'll be looking, especially if we get back above about 49,440. We do potentially have another percent B buy setup. We'll have to see if that holds. If not, to the downside 49,114. We have pretty key breakout level at 49,050, and then the bottom of the rotation zone is right below the 49,001. So if we did sell off, I'd be watching, and we get through 49,050, I'd be watching for this to possibly confirm, not necessarily trigger. We'll have to see on the Dow. By the way, tomorrow, if this does, we'll have to see. We could be setting up for a percent beat buy. The Russell, again, my sell. If we do sell off, pretty much 26.18 to 26.20 is the key support. 26.18 to 26.20. We'll also be looking for 4 hour percent beat buys. But other than that, If we don't have one of those, I need to roughly get above 26.48 to get back into bullish mode. Hey, Christoph, how are you doing? Hope you are well. So that's where we sit right there. Again, the Russell can easily still pull back, especially if we get a negative tariff ruling. Well, a tariff ruling against Trump. I can't say that's a negative tariff ruling. We are still at cycles at the top and still coming out of overbought. If we do break through 2620, 2600 to 2603 is the next key support. VIX, again, elevated going into potential tariff rulings. Gave plenty of opportunity to get some long volatility positions on in either the 1 day or the VIX. We'll see where the 1 day opens. The DAX, finally, after hitting the harmonic area, getting a slight pullback, trailing stop if it closes below yesterday's low. First key support area is coming in about 25,275 to 25,3. The yields, back and forth, the lower end of the range, but nothing's changed at this. Nothing has changed. 30-year, testing support and bouncing a little. Again, nothing's changed in the overall long-term pattern. Crude continues higher. I think it's based off the Middle East fears, but the percent B buy has still been following through on a trailing stop for the last bit. Trailing stop, especially with the close above the 50, went above the 50% harmonic all the way to 62.5. Now, this has not tipped the probabilities for a continued run yet. We're going to see where this closes today. But now this is in aggressive trailing mode, especially if it starts dropping into and beyond the 4-hour rotation zone. But it's run pretty far, pretty fast over bot conditions. Could it pop higher? I'm watching. I'll loosen it up a bit from trailing mode if it gets above 62.13 on a closing basis. Natty gas, going to watch to see if we form another double bottom pattern here. That's about it. Gold, rallying, spiking up still. This potential double top, it was confirmed but not triggered yesterday, is off the table now. Against the 4-hour rotation zone. Nothing else to talk about. Gold still can't trigger. And anyways, that was a lower probability double. But next targets, 46.59, 46.60, and 4,700 and 47.16. If it gets above 46.59, this other double's off the table. It's already gotten to lower probability mode. It would take a hell of a lot to trigger that. But it's probably going off the table. Silver to the next 91, 92, really 92 area harmonic. When this thing reverts, and it's probably going to take it to hit 100 first, but this is going to be a doozy. This is going to be a doozy. So, there we go. Just know where you're trailing. If you're long silver, copper, we still have a potential double top there. Nothing else to talk about there. Trend is still up. Dollar index testing the first target again and finding very strong resistance just below 99, 98.80. So nothing's changed there. Euro, nothing's changed after hitting the second target with the double top. Yields on the yen, or in Japan, I should say, JGBs. The yields not on the yen, the JGBs, they are continuing to climb. 30-year retesting its high area. 10-year to new highs. Recent highs. There we go. The yen finally, we haven't looked at this, but finally ticked off the 87.5. That's what I was waiting for. That's been the target I've been talking about for weeks. There we go. That does not mean it has to stop, but definitely more aggressively raising stops on longer term yen positions. Bitcoin. Then we'll get to the spiders. Bitcoin. I talked about this because I talked about the setup. We pulled back, was watching for the buy thing. We got the trigger of the double, gave multiple opportunities without ever invalidating it, went through all the targets, and then this is one. All right, we hit the first, second, third targets. Why would it be still a hold? Because remember, this is a pattern I love. Testing this key resistance area, pulling back with the rising rotation zone, and now above that. So it's unwinding, taking some off, and then turning it into a hold. With worst case being a break-even stop on the remainder. Worst case. But now it's got to pull back and hold the rising rotation zone. It can dip a little below the support level. It can pull back, 93,800 even, and on a closing basis. Even on a less aggressive 93, 92.8. And looking for then to continue a rotation up. This has to now prove itself to go to the upside. Alrighty. Spiders. Pulling back to the daily rotation zone yesterday. Gap down today, 691. On the gap fill, it would be 693.77. If we start breaking below, what was the low yesterday? I forget off the top of my head. 691.35, so we're just below that. So on any opening rally, be looking for that. But if we start breaking below 690.50, we'll start watching for the bigger pullback closer to the bottom of the daily rotation zone. To the upside, first would be the gap fill, and then you have a very strong resistance level right around 695.50. Qs, gap down today. So first thing would be the gap fill to the bottom of the rotation zone, and the level I talked about yesterday around 623.80. We start right now, we're at 622.50. We really start selling off and get below 622.31, then I'm watching for a test of bottom of the rotation zone. If we go beyond there, then I'm looking at 618.20 area. So let's see what else we wanted. It was AMD, right? AMD overall, we don't have a double. Little bounce here, but AMD has to start getting above this 221.60 area. Then the targets are still 230.70 area, then 239.78. If it loses this key support level, it's building a slightly higher base. Again, I'm still watching my trigger for really more sustained rotation back in the AI is if we trigger the Avgo, the Broadcom. We have the percent B buy that's followed through but not yet confirmed or triggered the double. So the front run percent B buy is not triggered or confirmed the double, so it's in trailing mode now. Intel, which has ticked off the 87.5. And let's look at the weekly on this. Retested a very key area from the highs in December of 23. This is insanely overbought. With waning momentum, it's all, just rushing into the turnaround, Donald Trump 10% investment, but they've got unless they produce massive earnings, not even a beat, but massive earnings, they're trading as a trailing PE of 4,156. Their turnaround story is not going to happen overnight. Okay? So I'd be careful. I'd at least know where your trailing stop is on this. We just want to point that out. What XLF? Yes, the XLF, we had some bank earnings. The XLF had the percent B buy sell with divergences, and now with the it's trading back below. We got a support zone in here. I'd be watching to see where it closes in relation to 54 today. Remember, we have other key earnings tomorrow still. But this is key. If it starts losing that, we might have the run over in the short term at XLF. What is the stock IREN? I do not know. I've never traded it. I have no idea, but let's just take a look at the technicals. I've never traded IREN. Breaking out above a key base. So this, prior, let's just let's just analyze it. So you had prior support, coming resistance, confirmed spike through resistance a couple times, and now closing above that resistance area. So next targets, as long as it does not lose I'd roughly say, boy, as long as it does not lose about 44.50, I'd stay in bullish mode. Targets, at least to raise a stop, would be just above 55. And then you have a key gap left behind right by the 62.5 harmonic. So around 60 be the next area I'd target for a at least raise stop or take partial profits. If it closes above 60.55, shifts the probabilities higher for a retest of the high area. Other than that, let's just take a look at the weekly. Back above the rotation zone. So, yeah. I mean, from a technical perspective, unless it drops back below the daily rotation zone and the 50 EMA on a closing basis, I'd be looking for either continuation buys or if you're already in it, at least trailing a stop. So that's just looking at, I don't know, I have to look up what they do exactly, but that's just based off the pure technicals. Well, you're not going to catch them all. You miss rally in AXTI. You're not going to catch them all. By the way, we haven't looked at uranium in a while. Just wanted to point this out. I have an updated chart on here. The double is getting close to being completely invalidated now. This is not one shorting. It hit the first target and set up a %B buy, and now is broken above a key resistance base. So uranium, which had the bigger pullback, we finally reconnected with the monthly rotation zone and now moving back up. So I'm keeping a close eye on uranium now for any pullbacks as long as it does not lose the 50 EMA yet. It's technically not invalidated the double, but I'm watching for pullback plays on this again. Keep an eye out for that if you're longer term in uranium. If it loses the 50, I'm not interested in it in the short term again. With that, let's just peek at the S&P again. Peeking at the S&P. Nothing's changed going into the open. Levels look about the same. If we start breaking down below this 69, 66, 67 area, looking for that 69.57. And then 69.40 below that. 69.57 is mine, or 69.40 is much more significant. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. And I hope everyone has a wonderful, wonderful day. I will talk to everyone later. Be on the lookout in case the tariff ruling does come out today. So be prepared for potential volatility and momentum. That's why we prepare our levels ahead of time. And dark screen, don't use too much leverage. Talk to everyone later. Bye for now.